Welcome to The Inner Practice, the podcast where we explore how yoga shows up as a tool for healing, grounding, and transformation in everyday life. Today I'm joined by Mikaela Jimenez, a fourth-year nursing student, activist, and new yoga practitioner who roots her work and her practice in decolonization and collective care. Mikaela shares how yoga came into her life during a time of deep burnout and grief, and how it's become a space of reconnection to herself, to community, and to a vision of collective liberation. Her story reminds us that yoga isn't just about movement. It's about rest as resistance, boundaries as care, and healing as something we can do together. So let's dive in. Mikaela, I love that name. Am I okay to call you Mika?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So I am really excited to hear your story because it's something that I never thought that I would have a conversation with someone about. Usually people talk about mental struggles from within, so I'm really excited. However, and just to give our listeners a little bit of kind of understanding of where we're going to go, I'm going to ask if you can do a land acknowledgement.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So I want to acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people. The truth is, the systems and wealth we benefit from in Canada exist because treaties were broken, genocide was committed, and resources that Indigenous people cared for over thousands of years were taken. Saying this isn't enough, real reconciliation means returning land and restoring Indigenous sovereignty.
That is amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for acknowledging the land and the people who walked before us. Why is this really important to you?
I'm Filipino, so we are also an Indigenous nation that has faced a lot of colonization, and I believe that all of us are very interconnected. So what's happened in Canada to Indigenous people is very interconnected to what happened in Hawaii and the Philippines and just so many other places, and I think we have the privilege and have benefited off of this land and everything that it's given to us, and it's important to recognize where this all started and just be mindful as we kind of go forward and exist here.
Yeah, so this is a real personal story for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because I wasn't sure how this kind of interwove within Canada, and certainly full disclosure, one of the sad things, this is why I'm really excited about this, one of the sad things about my own journey is that my great-grandmother is actually Métis.
Okay.
And she's a product of the system. I air quote, she was a successful product of the reservation, and I say that with a lot of being very facetious because I don't know anything about my roots, and it's been lost. And it's really sad because I'm blonde, I'm blue-eyed, I look very like a colonizer, like my great-grandfather or my grandfather who is from England. And that part of me, we talked about it. My mom talked about it, but it's been lost. So it's certainly something that's in me. So I'm really excited that this is something that is really important to you.
Yes.
So Mika, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself? You're from the Philippines. You've experienced kind of colonization. I don't want to put words in your mouth. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
That is correct. Yeah, I'm from the Philippines. I immigrated here when I was about 8. And I've been living in Canada since. I'm in my 4th year of nursing, and I love hiking and I love traveling and I love community, but all of this connects because I really love people.
Hence why you're in nursing.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is it that so you're moving into your 4th year. By the time this airs, you are in your 4th year. Probably starting your winter or fall exams. That will, I know you don't want to think about that as we talk about this. What is it that you want to do with your nursing degree? Because when I asked you, I expected I'm going to work in the hospital, that type of thing.
I don't lean hospital. I always kind of explain that to people, is that I'm very community-based and community-focused. So my goal is to work with a lot of marginalized folks, people of color, people who fall under the 2S LGBTQ plus community, unhoused folks, people who suffer through substance use. And the reality is that healthcare, the system is broken, and hospitals are not safe spaces for all. So the goal is to bridge the gap and rebuild that trust by meeting people where they're at. So that's more going into their space and their home and where they're comfortable, and meeting them in the community. So maybe street nursing, working for policy changes, things like that is kind of where I'm leaning.
That's amazing. That is so heartwarming. And for you at your young age to think outward into the community, and why is it important for you that you reach out into the community?
I think that people are very quick to not go to hospitals and like medical facilities. I've heard it time and time again where there's been so many folks that have a broken leg and they just don't want to go to the hospital because they don't think they're sick enough, or they don't think that they deserve to take up space. I think that's a really common thing. Or they've been hurt by it before, where they've gone and doctors called them drug seeking and then didn't end up giving them the care that they deserved. And I think that healthcare is for all, and I believe in equity for that. So I think meeting people where they're at is just going to be the best way that we can holistically take care of them.
Wow, that, my mind flashes to studies that I've read, looking at, and these are primarily U.S. studies, looking at the African American population and, why is diabetes on the rise, or why it's so big, and the stigma that's attached. And I'm not familiar with a lot of research in Canada looking at Indigenous populations, but the healthcare is not meeting the needs.
Yeah.
And I think from my perspective, and you fill in, is that I don't understand the cultural divide. And I don't understand the practices that are really super important. So for you to want to integrate yourself into that just makes my heart sing. So yay you. Like, honestly, yay you. But this has been a little bit stressful for you. This whole thought process and this wearing your heart on your sleeve. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, to put it very bluntly, I didn't have very good boundaries when I first started. Just even beyond nursing school, just activism and social justice has just always been something that has fueled me and made a life path, if you will. And I didn't have good boundaries with it, so I would overextend myself to the point of burnout. And I think a lot of feelings of like not enoughness and not feeling like I was doing enough, and then also taking up space, and all of these factors just led to really bad burnout very quickly in it, just because it is we talk a lot about in like the social justice community that it is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So when we go hard and fast really in the beginning, people burn out and then it's hard to come back in. So yeah.
When did you find this burnout occurring? Because as a student, as a professor, I see burnout in our students, and that really makes me sad that we're burning our students out before they've even stepped into that healthcare role. When did you start to experience this burnout?
I've experienced it a few times in my life, but a really big one happened a few years ago. Specifically, what was happening in Palestine was a really big thing, and I had my hands in a million different things. I was doing school while trying to fundraise for help for them, as well as trying to live a rounded life with family and relationships and friends. And I found myself just really not feeling like I was ever doing enough in any of them.
And like, where did this heart come from? this heart for Palestine, this heart for indigenous populations. Where does that come from?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you where the root was, other than just I know that I'm a marginalized person. I'm a person of color. I'm queer. I am an immigrant. So I know a little bit of what it is like to be marginalized, just some of the intersections. And again, I just do think we are all interconnected and we're woven within each other. So I can empathize and I can feel for everything else that's happening in this world and the people that are suffering for it, because again, people first, it's always humans first. So to see anybody suffering is hard.
Yeah, especially when someone's in the healthcare field, because people don't go into a healthcare field with a hardened heart.
Yeah.
They may develop that hardened heart. Can you, and I know this may to you sound like a really weird question, but can you describe what life is like as a marginalized person? Because sometimes, and I think of different movements and stuff where people are like, why do you have an issue? We're all equal. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Can you describe kind of, and feel free to share experiences if you're comfortable.
It is hard. For context, my partner is trans and I'm a person of color, so we are an interracial queer couple, and we go into a lot of spaces being looked at and feeling not welcome. I think it's really hard to explain the experience other than just you walk in and there is a different energy that comes in, and there have been many instances in which I have walked in and I've had this experience, and my friend who is white and cis and not marginalized in those ways and able-bodied and all of the things can walk in and have another experience completely. We live in a small town as well, and I think that there are things that still need to be learned.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about being a professor is my students teach me a lot. And they teach me about language and communication and being very sensitive to culture, because again, kind of being that face that I wear. I mean, I understand what it's like to be a woman, but wearing that face, I don't necessarily understand being another's, and it's and one of the things that I've learned is meet people where they're at, and not to judge, but that's come with a lot of egg on my face as well, where I've made the mistakes. I just appreciate people saying, hey, you know what, that's not cool, and being very kind and explaining that to me. Although it's not their role, they've been very kind to me as well. So I always appreciate that. Can you tell us a little bit more about, and again, we talk about burnout, but can you tell us some of the symptoms that you experienced burning out?
Yeah, I was sleeping a lot. I found myself sleeping a lot, and then I found myself getting really apathetic towards most things. I was in the middle of really hard exams, and I just found myself not really caring about it. I was not as kind as I knew that I was capable of being, and my fuse was really short. I'm not an angry person, but I found my tolerance for things was a lot shorter. So I would get frustrated and I would back away, and I would be able to kind of acknowledge that I'm not in a good headspace right now. I'm just going to take a step back and breathe and come back to it. But it was at such shorter distances than it ever was prior to that.
Did you recognize something was happening?
For sure. I mean, I've lived with some mental health things in the past. I've suffered through depression and anxiety, and I've known the symptoms because I've experienced the symptoms. But I think the added weight of this just kind of being something that was beyond me, just feeling like if I stopped doing this advocacy work that I was being complacent in it, made it really hard to choose myself in that moment and take a step back. So I just kept pushing through.
Right, because you felt that the work that you were doing was more important than you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how did you learn, or maybe you're still in the process of learning, like when did you recognize that I'm suffering here, that this is impacting me negatively?
I had to get hospitalized for it. I was so depressed that it became a danger to myself. So I admitted myself into the hospital, and I stayed there for a few weeks, and then kind of was given resources and coping tools, and then was able to come back. And I just knew I couldn't keep sustaining this. This wasn't a sustainable way of being. Something had to change.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you reached out for help. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast, as I've mentioned in other episodes, is you are not alone. And there's other people that share your story, and reaching out to somebody is the first step in healing. Can you comment a little bit on that? Is that because you're in the healing profession, like that reaching out, particularly where you wanted to work with marginalized populations who, maybe don't trust the healthcare system?
I would say that I'm a big believer in options and accessibility. So if for whatever reason hospital just isn't an option for you because you are taking time off, like that's 2 weeks to months that you're not getting a paycheck, and maybe that's just not an accessible thing for you. If you have it, lean on community. There are helplines in which you can call just to talk to somebody for like a brief 10 minutes if that's just what you need to unload. And yeah, just community. The answer is always community. Please lean on the folks that you trust, and just know that they're going to guide you through it and help you. And when you get better, you can stand up, and if they go through it, you can lean on them, and it's just this beautiful cyclical reciprocity that we get to live in.
I love it. Is this, because I'm super interested in your education, is this something, because I always see nurses having big hearts, right? And that's it. I always think that if you're a nurse, you've got this huge compassion heart. Is this something that you learn about, like marginalization and healthcare with marginalized populations? Is that embedded in your program, or are you kind of one of those, I don't want to call you a weird person, but you know what I mean, someone who's not
an outlier.
Thank you. Right. That's a much better word. Thank you.
It is in it because under the Canadian Nurses Association, it is a requirement to have like an Indigenous health course and to talk about these things. I believe that we could always be doing better. There's many times where it'll just be one slide where we'll talk quickly about how, and to us LGBTQ people face hardships in the healthcare system, so be mindful of that, but we're not necessarily being taught how to be mindful of that.
Right.
Yeah, so there are gaps. I think we are meeting the requirements, but I think there are always more that we can be extending. And I think it also has to do with if we have a professor who doesn't necessarily have this lived experience and also hasn't worked with these folks before, marginalized groups of any kind, how do we expect them to be able to teach this and help us understand it when they themselves are also coming in a little bit blind? So if we could bring other public speakers into that, or just listen to other people's stories, I think we would benefit a lot more.
And I am glad you mentioned about that lived experience, because you're right. I mean, we all have our own experiences, but mine comes from one lens, yours comes from another lens, and I view things through my own lens and my own background. And, some of the most powerful stories I've heard in my own education literally comes from others. I remember, and this is probably mid-90s, early 90s, when I took a drug course in university, and having that man sit there in front of us and tell us about his struggle with alcoholism. I knew nothing about it, but I grew to an appreciation for, how his struggles are so different from mine. I have no idea what this person goes through. And I love that. I never mean to talk this much, but I love your topic so much, that each of us are individual people, and to look at that and not look at, oh, you're Filipino, you're all the same, right? Because that's not how we are.
You always have to look at people as a whole, and the reality is like we all grow up with our own biases and stigma. This is just the world that we live in and the way that it's shaped us. I am an able-bodied person, so I am ableist. I just am, and I'm working really hard to go against that. But I'm looking through a lot of these lenses as somebody who's able-bodied, so maybe I'm not looking at ramp accessibility, or if the theater has closed captions for movies. So we give grace to the fact that the system has been built so that we are this way, and we challenge it, and we educate when we can, and we ask and we listen to stories.
You know, yay you for saying that part about ask and listen to stories. Ask and listen to stories, because that's how you learn about others. I mean, that's so powerful, and I'm so glad that you, as a soon-to-be nurse, feels this calling. However, as you've experienced, burning out is real.
Yeah.
So you've discovered yoga.
Yes.
And can you tell us about what brought you to yoga?
So I've been doing it for 4 months now, and I work at the cafe just a few doors down. So I had a lot of folks that were doing the yoga classes, as well as the instructors coming in after or before their classes. And they were all very kind and welcoming and just saying, like, please come try it. And I was always a little bit nervous at first. I think I at first saw yoga as more of a physical activity and something for aesthetics. And I did my own research on it. And I was also just trying to find different ways to regulate myself a little bit better. I was doing walks, I do therapy, I do all the things, but I knew something else was missing. So I tried it one day, and it was the first time in a long time in my life that for 1 hour my brain was off. And it was peaceful. And I felt like I was in tune with myself, and for that hour it felt like I was recharging my battery and filling my cup. Because
had you felt beforehand that your battery was being drained?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And so what were you doing before to try and recharge that battery? Or was there anything?
I do a lot of hiking. That brings me a lot of joy. I travel a lot, and I be with community, and those are all great things, and I still do that. But Canada is a 4 seasons country, so winters are hard. I'm just going to be so honest. Winters are so hard. And this past winter was really hard. So it was hard to do hikes because it was snowing really badly. And it was hard to be with community because it was hard to drive anywhere. And all of these practices that I've put in place were just kind of put to pause during the winter. And I needed something else.
Right. What was it about that first class, if you can think about, what was it about that first class that allowed you to kind of just tune in and be at peace? Was there anything in particular, or just the whole thing?
We had the blocks, and they told us to put it in a specific way where one was on my head and one was in between my scapula. And I remember my chest feeling really open, and we did that for a few minutes, just kind of breathing. And I felt lightness. It didn't feel as heavy, all of these thoughts and sinking things. And yeah, it was just like a moment of just peace and quiet.
Because that heaviness that you're feeling, that sits in your brain, that that undercurrent of what's going on in Palestine, and I don't want to trigger you, but all the stuff that's going on in the world can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
Particularly, I'm assuming for you, who wears a lot of this stuff on a regular basis. So you kept coming back. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Why?
I think it was to honor myself, to allow myself an hour once every 3 weeks to do self-care. And I think I learned that rest, and yoga's work, do not get me wrong, like, it is physical work and spiritual, mind, body, soul, but it's also rest. And I learned that rest was resistance, and that I couldn't keep sustaining this advocacy work without also taking breaks for myself, and also trusting that my community and the people around me that were also doing this work could go without me for a little bit.
Right.
And then I'd catch up when I could. Right. And then they would rest.
Right. You have described, I was just looking at my notes here, you called rest a radical act.
Yeah.
Why? Why is it radical?
I think our society was built to teach us that working hard and like consistently, we like grind culture. I think that's a really big thing, and it's something that's celebrated. And I think even like specifically, I think about like to be a woman, it is celebrated to be a martyr in this, to just sacrifice, and that rest is bad and rest is lazy. But I do think it is a radical act of love and resistance and care. And it's not even just about us. I always thought, I was like, if I rest, it's selfish. If I do that, that's selfish. But I found out that I could actually do it as a form of care for others. And also just a way to just state our boundaries, to say, I love you enough to know that I need to rest and I need to step out. Right. And I can't wait until I'm done resting to come back and love you just as much as I can, right, and in a better way.
That is such a powerful lesson. Can I ask how old you are?
I'm 26.
That is such a powerful lesson for someone who's this young and in school still. And I say that because I look at my own students. And I wish that I could tell them the importance of that, and for them to actually, take it in, because it's venerated. Give. If you don't work 7 days a week, I'm speaking to you, athletic therapist. If you don't work 7 days a week and 6 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night, you're somehow less than yourself. And what, from a healthcare perspective, I mean, maybe you can just educate us a little bit. Why might that be bad?
Burnout is real, and we talk about it in healthcare, that sleep and resting is the reason why when you get a surgery afterward, they're like, just rest for a little bit, just sleep, because our bodies actually heal more when we're sleeping. And I also think our souls, and I also think our minds. And I also just don't think you can do the best of your abilities when you're feeling like your battery is low. And then now you're doing a disservice to everybody, yourself and others. So just rest. That's my
So can I say, when you have learned this lesson, now you've been doing yoga for 4 months, how are you going to ensure that this lesson continues? Because you're in the healthcare field where it's go. How are you going to make sure that you take this opportunity of rest for you?
Well, I'm lucky that I have people in my life that hold me accountable and are very good at catching me when I go a little bit too far. And this is my student healthcare, I think, brain, is that I actually do just have to schedule it. I have to schedule it in my life. So I pull out my calendar, I put in the spots that I'm gonna rest that week, and then it's nice because I have something to look forward to. I'm like, okay, 3 days I get to do this.
Yeah. This is going to be a really controversial conversation or topic, because I know the yoga community, it's really divided into honoring yoga's roots, and it's a really hot topic. So I'm curious as to this. How do you navigate yoga in a way that honors its roots and resists that extraction?
This is one of the reasons why I was a little bit hesitant to start yoga, to be honest, was just because I know that it is a colonized practice currently. And I do try to do things in the most cultural competence lens that I can. I found that the best way that I could do it was that I, as an individual, and I try not to look outwardly, I just do it for me, is that I decolonize yoga in my brain. So that means looking at it as a whole and as a spiritual practice that is mind, body, soul. I try to learn its roots. I do try to listen to, there are a lot of really great YouTube videos about beautiful Indian women who do decolonized yoga practices. So I do try to do those every so often just to kind of settle back in. And yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about what you mean by decolonized yoga practice?
So it is a colonized thing now. I think, I'm not saying this for all, but it is something that people have looked into as a physical exercise, and just a physical exercise, which is a component of it. But we have taken out the core, which is a spiritual practice and something for the mind, and something that has been done thousands of years in really beautiful and intentional ways, and certain westernized spaces have watered it down a little bit.
Yeah.
So we're going into it not maybe with its original intent. So to decolonize it is to kind of peel back those layers again and find those roots and really try to honor the practice that it is, something that has been going on for so long, and remember that and keep that at the forefront while I do my practice.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you say that, because, you know, I reflect on this a lot, because my fear as well is I want to be in the right space, and I want to do this practice to honor those who've come before me, because I have learned from those who've come before me. I didn't read a book about this. And this always sits with me. But the way I rationalize it is, if I had a drug or I had something that cured something, keeping it to myself may prevent others from healing. And I always see yoga as a healing practice. And, you know, can you comment a little bit about that healing practice? I know you said it gave you peace, but what other ways has yoga kind of helped in your healing?
I think it really helped with mindfulness and just being really present. And again, I think that hour was really dedicated for self-care and healing, and it was an hour where I listened to myself and my body, and then therefore found the spots that needed a little bit more attention. So it was great. I would do this hour of yoga. I would kind of get these little pings of like, oh, this is a thought that kind of keeps coming up. That's really interesting. I thought I was stressed about school, but the root is I'm not feeling enough because of X, Y, and Z, and school is just something that I'm projecting this onto. And I would spend this hour doing yoga and being mindful and just listening to myself, and then I would walk out and be, okay, what am I going to do about that now? And sometimes just the act of knowing what the root is, if it's not enoughness, if it's feeling unloved, whatever it could be, sometimes that was just a peace of mind in itself. Just be like, okay, that's what the issue is. So when it does come up again, like just say I'm at work and I'm getting really frustrated over this, I can go, oh, that's that not enoughness again coming out.
Right.
Naming it.
So I'm really curious, because you've said a lot of the components of yoga. I mean, if you look at the koshas, if you look at, you know, the Yoga Sutras, you've talked a lot of it about this. You may not be aware of it. And so is this something you've discovered, or because I know you a little bit, you're a little bit of a researcher. A little bit, yeah. Do your work. Where did this learning come from?
I have a lot of really beautiful people in my community who have shared their stories with me, and I think that has been, and I have researched a little bit. Yes, of
course she has.
Of course I have. I'm a student. So I'm going to be completely honest. I am still at the very beginnings of my research of yoga. And I've only been doing it for 4 months. So I can only imagine what I'm going to learn 4 months from now. But I specifically Googled, I remember Googling like decolonized yoga practices, and I would watch these videos of Indian women explaining some of the things about it and talking about the stories and beyond that also telling us actionable items that we can do to kind of move forward. And again, we're all interconnected, so we can look at yoga and we can also look at the colonization of that, and we can look at it as well with Indigenous people and the colonization of that, and we all interconnect.
Yeah, you know, and I'm not familiar with a lot of other practices, but yoga to me is, and I always visualize the koshas as being kind of a circular thing where you've got your breath, and then you've got your movement, and then you've got your mindfulness and your intuition and your wisdom. Like, all of these layers are important components. So I love what you said, that, some people use it just for the physical postures. But in your 4 months, you've actually begun to dive deep into this. So kudos to you. So you're really internalizing what the practice means. Can you share a little bit about what does yoga give you off the mat?
I always explain it to people that yoga taught me how to breathe. And the way that I've always described my anxiety and worry is that I felt like I was underwater and I was trying to swim up to catch my breath. So it was just that feeling of tightness and not being able to breathe. And yoga taught me to breathe. I didn't realize how much I was holding my breath until I was doing yoga. So I am able to, when I leave the mat and I get to just live my life, I breathe a little bit better. You do this beautiful thing in your yoga practice at the end when we're doing Shavasana, where you say, imagine a little capsule of light. So I've been doing that, and that's been really helpful. It feels warm. I think it helps relieve that tightness. And then you also do this beautiful thing where you say, I breathe in your intention and then breathe it back out into the universe. And that has done wonders.
Yeah. And I do that. Again, this isn't about me, but I do that. That's part of yoga, right? Like you're describing it, yoga's about yourself, but yoga's about your external environment as well. Like the yamas and the niyamas are the way that I take care of myself and the way I take care of my environment, because we're all interconnected. And even sending that message out to the universe or out to the world or wherever of that peace, when I say that, when I think about it, I do think about Ukraine. Like I'm sending it to, wherever this crazy world that we're in that needs it. Maybe it's to my dad or my friend or wherever as well. I send it to those spots. So thank you. That truly, I appreciate that a lot. How do you think that you will use these practices, because this is where I'm really curious, in your own profession?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think that's a really good question. I think yoga taught me to be able to really focus in on myself and kind of pinpoint, and I think that that's something that we can add into nursing. We do a lot of assessments in the beginning where we're asking just health history and what's your name, how old are you, all the things. And I think there would be something really beautiful if we could also incorporate something along the lines of just a little body scan of just being okay, just breathe in. What's the first thought that came into your brain when you came in? Okay, this was your thought. Where did you feel that? Okay, that's really interesting. Let's talk more about that. I think a lot of times in healthcare, we treat the disease and not the person. And we need to look at people holistically. And I think taking a second to figure out what's really going on beyond their diabetes or their heart failure could really ensure that we're setting them up for success, because we can treat the diabetes, we can treat the heart failure, but if they're still feeling depressed and it's hard for them to grab their medication from the fridge and then, you know, insert the insulin, then we're not really doing the work.
Right. And even honoring the person with regards to their beliefs.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
And again, I'm not you, you're not me. You know, one of the things I ask as a yoga therapist is, tell me about your spiritual practice. And I've prayed with people because they're Christians and they want to pray. I've chanted with people because they want to chant. And there's other things where people are like, I am this. I'm like, you have to show me, but I'm meeting you where you are at so that you can feel that sense of connectedness with your purpose, your higher power, whatever it is. And so I love that. That was the answer I was kind of hoping, because I'm really passionate about this. So if you could fast forward, you're 5 years, you're working with people, you're doing whatever you're doing, where do you see yourself in yoga in 5 years?
I was really looking into doing the teacher training. I want to do a little bit more research on it as to finding, you know me, I like to do research. I want to find maybe where that's going to feel most aligned for me. And I think there's a lot of learning I need to do before getting there. I'm not necessarily looking to maybe teach. I don't know if that's my calling, but I think I'm going to be forever a student and learning so that I can better myself, and then hopefully just the people around me is the goal. So yeah, hopefully just doing yoga and taking lots of breaks and being able to travel in between. Yeah,
traveling's really important to you.
Yeah, it is.
And I know I've seen your Instagram stuff, so and I'm jealous as well, the places that you've been. You've said community is medicine. How has yoga helped reconnect you with your community and collective care?
It's made me be able to be more present in those spaces because I've taken steps back when I needed to. So then my battery is recharged, so that means I can go back in 100% versus when I used to go in at 40. It's made me... I'm a really big believer that like healing yourself just does in turn help the people around you, because I'm just able to show up better for the people that I care about.
Has anybody noticed a difference?
I'm gonna say I've been able to I think my boundaries have gotten better. So not necessarily that like people are saying that you're kinder or this, but just I'm more able to say I can't do that today, but I would love to do this a different day with you, or I don't think I have capacity for this, but how about this?
Right.
And I got to honor myself, and I think people are noticing that, which is good. I used to just say yes to everything.
And so that's pretty radical, to use your word about radical.
Absolutely.
How does that make you feel? Like,
good.
Is that scary, or is that to be able to say no?
It is hard every time. It is definitely hard every time. Again, like I think as women, we are taught to just say yes to everything and do it enthusiastically and happily.
Yeah.
And that is just how we have been brought up as a society. So to be able to say no always feels a little bit wrong, and I always feel a little guilty. But the universe is really interesting in a way that when I've said yes to things that I shouldn't have said yes to, I get a lesson really hard. And then when I have said no to the things that I've been wanting to say no to, I have been gifted immensely.
Yeah, good for you to recognize that, that you're listening to, the universe and those messages. So you're listening internally and you're listening externally as well. That's fantastic. What vision of liberation do you carry with you now? What is freedom to you?
I just want people to feel... I think about it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if none of you know that, it's just that I want everybody's basic needs to be met. I think everyone deserves food, shelter, water, warmth, community. And I think for me, if we all had access to that and we were all given that as our baseline moving forward, we would all be able to do the things that fed our souls and in turn just made us better people.
Yeah, it's sad that even in this country, in Canada, we have kids that go to school hungry. And summertime's hard for them because they don't have those food programs. And again, looking at our northern communities, want a 20-year boil water order.
Oh, yeah.
And, these things weigh heavily on me as well. And I think it's important that we don't bury the head in the sand. But what strategies have you used other than yoga to kind of help you understand? Because I always think of Atlas. Atlas who held up the world. As much as I'd like to be Atlas, I'm not.
Yeah.
What strategies do you use to not be Atlas?
I go to a lot of events where I am with like-minded people. So I'll go to protests, I'll go to fundraisers, and I think it just helps disperse the pain that I feel about this when I can feel pain together in community, and we can hold hands and we can cry about it and we can feel it together. I do the things I can within my limits. I did a cupcake drive last year where I raised money for medical aid for Palestine, and that fed my soul. And I go inner. I'm very about worldviews and advocacy through that, but I also try within my own community. So if it means ensuring that there is a gender-neutral bathroom and a restroom for my partner, and that's the win that I can get that day, that's a great win, and I'm happy about that.
Right, I love that. One of the things that I've really been curious about when you first kind of told me a little bit about your story is, and everyone in this podcast knows, because I mention almost every podcast, that I am older. I'm 55 when this comes out. Is I'm a huge CBC girl, and I just turn it off. I have to turn it off sometimes because it gets overwhelming. When I grew up, we had the radio and we had TV, and that was it. Now, I turn my phone on, and I've got all the headlines, I've got Instagram, I've got social media. How does a 26-year-old deal with that?
It's really hard to have so much access to so much. I really don't think that human beings should be able to look at their phone and see really gruesome videos of bombs and emaciated children. That's really traumatizing for anybody, and we hold that. I have to take breaks. I set a timer on my Instagram for 1 hour, and I don't exceed that ever. And there are just no phone days in my life. And also giving grace that that's okay. I used to feel really guilty for it. I used to think if I didn't know exactly what was happening, then I was being ignorant and therefore I was bad. But the reality is that I don't need to know I don't need to know the specifics. I don't need to know what got bombed. I don't need to know how many people got hurt and the exact number. I just know that people are suffering, and I can just feel that.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love about yoga, and I'm the ladies that go yoga have tattoos, and I see you have one as well, and I want to gamble, but I'm adverse to pain. But one of the things that we have growing up is, what's your purpose? And my purpose is to end suffering, and I know it's something that I will never accomplish, but it's a goal that I will continue to do. So I kind of see your heart in that as well. But I also worry about your generation and being overwhelmed. So it makes my heart sing when I hear that you are developing these coping strategies. Because my fear as a healthcare practitioner is you're going to be working with you and people under, who are younger than you as well. So I love the fact that you're using these messages of yoga, because I see you very clearly bringing them into your practice. And whether it's called yoga or whether it's just, hey, let's just spend some time breathing. I think that that's a great thing for you. If someone listening is in a place of burnout or they're overwhelmed, what wisdom from your journey do you want them to hear?
I would say to give yourself grace in that, and that it's okay, and that life ebbs and flows, and so does joy, and so does pain, and burnout sucks. And I'm not gonna make it sound like this is a romanticized thing. Burnout sucks. We can just name it. But you'll come back, and yeah, just give yourself grace. That's always my answer. It's just, I think we're all very hard on ourselves. So imagine having burnout and then now kind of beating yourself up for having burnout. Let's not do that.
Right. So it's that, I never thought about it that way, in the fact that you have burnout and then you beat yourself up that you have burnout, which only adds to more burnout and all those symptoms of apathy and tiredness and all those other things. This has been a fascinating interview. I'm fascinated because this is such a really interesting for me topic, where somebody has a heart and it's so big that it's actually creating a problem in your life. And I hope that you will continue to move forward in this journey, because I think yoga is such a healing modality. So I'm so glad you found it.
I'm glad too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being part of it.
Oh, well, my pleasure. Mika, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, is there anywhere they can get in touch with you?
Yeah. I have Instagram. Do I have any other? Yeah, that's kind of it. I only really have Instagram, so feel free. It's private, but I'll accept.
Okay.
So
you can reach out to me, and I'll put you in contact with Mika, and then
beautiful.
It's all good. But I look forward to your journey through life and as a nurse. Thank you once again for taking part in this.
Thank you so much.
Many thanks to Mikaela for sharing her powerful story and reminding us that rest, care, collective healing are acts of resistance. If this conversation resonated with you, take a moment today to pause, breathe, and remember that your healing is part of our healing. This is the Inner Practice. Be sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss upcoming episodes where we continue to share stories of how yoga supports us in moving through life with presence, resilience, and connection. I'm Jackie Vandertuin. Until next time, may you rest deeply, care for yourself tenderly, and remember, you are not alone.